Have you ever had a moment that made your skin crawl? A shadow where there shouldn't be one? A whisper in an empty room, or something you simply can't explain? If so, we want to hear from you. Here at the Haunted UK podcast, we're always on the lookout for spine-tingling stories to feature in our end-of-season listener episodes and our short haunt series. Whether it's a chilling encounter, a mysterious experience, or something that's haunted you for years, we want your tale. Send your story to contact us at hauntedukpodcast.com. And don't forget to follow us on social media: Facebook, X at Haunted UK Pod, TikTok and Instagram at Haunted UK Podcast, or visit our website www.hauntedukpodcast.com. Now, if you love what we do and want even more haunted goodies, then you can support the show on Patreon and Ko-fi. We've got 2 brilliant tiers, Possessed and Spooked, both packed with bonus content, exclusive episodes, and extra material that'll keep you up all night. But that's not all. We've launched a brand new sister podcast, Haunted UK Fiction, and we're calling all storytellers. Whether you're a published author, an aspiring writer, or someone with a natural gift for spinning eerie tales, we're looking for original fictional short stories and novellas with strong paranormal or supernatural themes. Think suspenseful, mysterious, atmospheric, terrifying, thought-provoking, even darkly magical. If your story is selected, we'll professionally narrate, record, mix and master it into an audiobook-style format, then feature it on the show. You'll get a copy of the finished production to use however you like, and you'll retain full ownership of your work. Submit your story to hauntedukfiction@hotmail.com and follow us on Instagram at hauntedukfiction. So whether it's truth or fiction, if it's haunted, we want it. Now, sit back and enjoy the episode. This is the Haunted UK Podcast's Short Haunts. Welcome, dear listeners, to our series of short haunts, a shot of scary, just for you. So grab a hot chocolate, maybe a tea, maybe something stronger, because this is Haunted UK Podcast's Short Haunts, a life of haunting experiences. So many times on this show we've heard accounts of people who seem to experience the paranormal or supernatural on multiple occasions. Many others go through life never having any type of encounter at all. So what makes these types of people so different to the rest of us? Could it have something to do with the effects that their body and mind have on the atmosphere around them? Are they somehow able to influence these strange phenomena to occur? Whatever exists beyond the veil of the world of the living, if anything exists at all, is it somehow attracted to the energy of these types of people? The thing is, how would you know if you have any influence on the paranormal or supernatural? It's not something that simply shows itself to you. Or does it? Perhaps people who have numerous encounters somehow feel different to others, feel that they are in touch with something that not everyone understands, and maybe they don't fully understand it either. Whatever the case, this short haunt seems to revolve around one of these people, a person who has had experience after experience after experience, This listener wishes to remain anonymous due to his past and current careers, and we will respect that wish. So it just remains for me to hand this short haunt over to our listener. Hi to all of you in the Haunted UK podcast team. Keeping myself anonymous, I wanted to let you know that I accidentally stumbled over your podcast and have been enjoying it so far. I'm at this moment listening to some listener stories and thought it would be the right time to submit some of mine. Before I go any further, I'd like to give you a little background about myself. For the past 18 years, I've been a medic in a large ambulance service, and previously to that, I'd served in the Royal Army Medical Corps as a combat medic. I can honestly say that ghost stories have been a part of my life since I was a very young child. My parents lived in a police house which was on an estate built in the late 1970s, and my mother always told me that when I was a baby, I would stare at certain places in the house. As I got older, this went further, and I would talk to a stranger who obviously wasn't there. At least, not to anyone but me. One particular incident which frightened my mother was when she came home to find the contents of the kitchen all over the floor. At the time, my father was a serving police officer, so my mum immediately contacted him, which resulted in a number of officers being sent to the house to ensure everything was okay. Upon their arrival, and after a thorough search, they didn't find any sign of a break-in. Unfortunately, this wouldn't be the only time this happened. On 2 other occasions, my mother would be out shopping or visiting family and would return to find something thrown out of the kitchen cupboards. The last time something occurred in my old family home was a few months after my grandmother had passed away. By now, I was married and had set up home with my wife. During the process of sorting out my grandmother's effects, some furniture had been moved into the family home. One of these pieces was kept in my old room, and one evening, while myself and my wife were visiting, we both had a very strange encounter. It was a Friday night, and I woke to feel something sitting on the end of the bed. At first, I thought it was the cat, but remembered that we had shut the door to stop the grumpy thing from getting into the room. I looked at the door, which was still closed, and then to the end of the bed, and there, as clear as day, was an indentation on the duvet, as if someone or something had sat down on it, but there was nothing in the room which could have caused it. I didn't feel scared or feel anything bad in the room. I simply went back to sleep. I told my wife the next morning about this strange incident, and her reply surprised me. She told me that she had also been woken up that same night to the same feeling of something sitting on the end of the bed. Again, as with my experience, she also initially thought it was the cat, so she sat up to take a look, but was shocked to see something that definitely wasn't the cat. It was a woman who was sat on the end of my side of the bed. My wife said she was dressed in a white nightdress. She had long hair and sat with her back towards us. My wife also didn't feel scared or experience any type of unpleasant feeling. According to her, it was as if someone was checking in on us. Now, whether this was my grandmother or the person I interacted with as a small child, I could not say. I know the house was a 1970s build and it was constructed on old farmland. There were stories dating from Victorian times which still circulated around the area that told of a young woman who drowned in the nearby pond. Her ghost is said to visit the estate. When I left home and joined the army, my ghost encounters continued. My first home was an old RAF base, which had been used during World War II, then handed to the army after one of the post-Cold War restructuring programs. This led to various changes in military strengths and capabilities. We shared the base with a cavalry regiment who had all the nice shiny accommodations and working spaces, but my unit were initially given the old Nissen huts, which had been condemned for habitation until they sorted something more appropriate. Think of a Nissen hut as a sort of half-tube-like structure, and you'll get the picture. Luckily, I joined the unit just after they were given what was essentially a new version of Nissen huts. The guys who were in the old accommodation would joke about strange noises and rooms suddenly becoming cold, and they would tell me of the tower being haunted as well. Now, as a new guy, I was listening to these stories but felt they were simply tall tales being fed to the newbies to set them up for some sort of prank, as is universal in all military service. The tower in question was the old control tower next to an old airfield, and we used the top part as offices for the unit sergeants and the 2 lieutenants. The bottom part of the tower was used as storage for medical equipment, and we were constantly in and out of the storage space to check the equipment. As anyone who has been in the military will attest, if there is nothing constructive to do, the seniors would get you to check all the equipment and vehicles, even if they had been checked the day before. I recall one of the rooms used as storage always being ice cold, and I would get a horrible, creepy feeling of being watched. At night, the tower was always locked, and the keys were left in the guard room. Most nights, the guard commander would have to send the quick reaction force to the tower, as the lights would mysteriously be switched back on. Luckily for me, the QRF were normally guys from the married quarters, and they would always report that same icy feeling in the tower. But worse. Much worse. They would also quite often hear bangs and creaks, as they were doing a search of the building to make sure no one was in there. Now long departed from the armed forces and in the ambulance service, my encounters with the paranormal continued. Post-army, my wife and I first set up home in a 1930s ex-council house. We began to experience strange phenomena from the off, like drawers being opened and a strange smell that would follow us throughout the house. I always thought it smelled like burnt hair, while my wife described it as smelling like roast chicken. We mainly noticed this smell in the back bedroom or on the stairs, but I had also noticed it while sat in the dining room or in the living room, right after it had been noticed upstairs. At the time, we had a very grumpy tabby cat, which seemed to be tormented by whatever was in that old house. The cat would be asleep on the small landing of the stairs and would often wake up suddenly and bolt down the stairs, as if he'd been kicked. Often, I would also see from the corner of my eye a blurred figure shoot across from one side of a room to the other. My first time noticing this was on the day that we moved in. I can remember being in the kitchen, emptying boxes and placing the contents into the cupboard. The entrance to the dining room was missing a door, as the previous owner had tried to turn the space into an open plan type of affair. This was to my right, and I initially thought that the cat was moving past in the dining room, but was heading towards the wall, which I thought was odd. I stuck my head in the room but found no cat, until he came in from outside, using the cat flap in the kitchen, which was now behind me. To this day, I have no idea what this thing was, but I saw it a number of times. Maybe it was the spirit of a previous inhabitant of the house, or possibly someone or something that was tied to the land before it was developed. We ended up leaving this house due to our growing family. So, back to my job in the ambulance service. I've had 2 strange encounters which really stand out. The first one took place when I was part of a fast response unit. This is basically a car which is used to get to the most life-threatening calls before the ambulance does. I was on a night shift and sat at the station by myself. The station I was based at was a small satellite station with 2 ambulances and the response car. On this particular night, I was truly alone, as the ambulances were being utilized a lot more than the car. I was sitting in the mess room at around 2:30 a.m. watching a police reality TV show, as there was little else to watch at the time. Next to the mess room was the garage where the trucks were parked at the end of a shift. For energy-saving reasons, the lights in the garage were motion-activated, and it was as dark as can be. While I was sitting there, I suddenly heard a scraping noise coming from the garage, so I went to check it out. I opened the connecting door and popped my head in, and the lights came on, but there was no one there and no obvious cause for the noise. I returned to the mess room and sat back down. The lights went off, but soon after, the noise started again. I got up and looked, but again, nothing. As before, I sat back in the mess room and tried to ignore it. A short while later, the radio went off to indicate that a job had been sent to me. So to save time, I went out through the fire exit and into the car. I rolled out and onto the street and had gone just a meter or so when the call was downgraded. With no call to run on, I reversed back into the station and went through to the garage, which can only be accessed via a keypad system. As expected, the lights pinged on, but instead of the usual sights of the garage, I was instead confronted by a large clinical waste bin, which had been dragged across the entrance to the female changing room, its locking brakes still firmly on. The atmosphere of the garage didn't feel good at all. In fact, it was like stepping into a walk-in freezer, and this was August. It had been a scorcher of a day, so the night was warm too, and I'd been off station for a minute, if that. I immediately turned around and spent the rest of the shift sitting in the car instead, until my relief arrived in the morning. When my relief did turn up, a conversation immediately started with why the bin had been moved. I relayed to them the events of the previous evening, the scraping noises, and they told me that on their last night shift, they'd had a very chilling experience. They had been on a rest break and had nodded off, but were suddenly woken up when they felt the sensation of someone blowing breath into their face. They also now preferred not to sit in the station by themselves. My last strange encounter happened during COVID and the first lockdown. Obviously, it was a strange time for everyone, and nobody really knew what was going on, and the general public felt a real fear of going into hospital. For the first time in a long time, the call rate had dropped off drastically, and we were rarely sent out after midnight. During this period, I was on an ambulance, and on this particular night shift I was taking the opportunity for a little quiet time. As all ex-forces will know, eat when you can, and get some sleep if you can. I was in the back of the ambulance, laying on the trolley, and probably snoring like a walrus at the time. If anyone has been in the back of an ambulance, you'll know that they're quite top-heavy, and the type of suspension means they rock quite easily. I woke up to the feeling that something had shifted in the ambulance, and I was no longer alone on the trolley bed. Something very heavy was now sat on the edge of the bed. There was an oppressive atmosphere in the truck, and I felt a strong urge to get out of there as quickly as possible. Once outside, the oppressive feeling quickly faded away. My crewmate asked if we had a call when he saw me walk into the busy mess room. I replied no, but that I'd had a strange feeling when I was in the truck. Another crew member in the mess room overheard my conversation with my colleague and asked what fleet we were on. I told them what the fleet number was, and they said they'd had a similar experience not too long before. This started a conversation about various ghost stories the crews had experienced over the years. Thank you so much for the background noise as I do my housework or when I'm on my commute to work. Best regards, Anonymous. And that is where we bring this short haunt to a close. But what an amazing and chilling set of experiences. We must ask the obvious question first, which is, how can one person have such a high number of varied experiences throughout their life so far? It's not as though their career has been spent in one place, or even in one profession. The different environments, the different settings, the different phenomena, all experienced by the same individual. We've mentioned several times on this show how some people seem to be a type of psychic beacon for the paranormal and supernatural, but we're no closer to discovering why this is the case for such a few choice souls. What do they possess that we don't? An understanding? A sympathetic subconscious? A gift? Or is it something else entirely? These questions and many more remain unanswered, for now. But if you feel that you are one of these extremely sensitive people, then why not reach out to the show? Tell your story, and maybe, just maybe, the next person whose experiences could be put in the spotlight of a short haunt could be you.